Thank you for joining us today for our May Dementia Question and Answer with Melanie Bunn. We're excited to have everybody. We're talking about preparing for family events today. You know, we just had Mother's Day and we're getting ready for graduations and weddings and other things, and those can be interesting times with our loved ones. So we want to thank our sponsors first off, ASI, Acadia, and Capital Financial Solutions with Kent Thompson. Thank you for providing this opportunity for us today. And Melanie, welcome and thank you for your time. We're excited to be here, and why don't we just jump right into this interesting topic, preparing for family events.
Well, thanks, Lisa. And it is a question and answer, so that's what we're going to be spending most of the time talking about, whether it's talking about, questions that people send us in ahead of time, or whether it's talking about questions of people who are attending this session. But I wanted to just kind of start with this idea of what Lisa had kind of mentioned, is this idea of we make family connections during family events. And so it might be things where we're celebrating, like weddings and graduations and holidays and new babies and birthdays and vacations. It might be times when we join together to grieve, like funerals and other kinds of losses. But they're important that we get together, that we build those memories, we build those relationships, we build those connections. So I've had a list of meaningful questions, and we'll kind of weave these as we go through, as we're talking about specific kind of issues and specific kinds of things that might happen. And we'll use these to kind of guide us as we explore how do we, when do we, why do we, and kind of is it the language, I don't want to say is it worth it, but I want to say is it worth it. So it comes down to, who are we doing this for? Is it good for the key person of the event? Is it good for the person living with dementia? What are some of the variables in there that we might talk about? And had another list of questions of how do I prepare? The person living with dementia, myself, others who might need to know ahead of time, or things that kind of happen in the minute. So those were where my kind of questions and thoughts went to. So I know, Mike, you came to us today with a question that you sent to Lisa. So what's your question about family events and dementia, or just dementia?
Right. Well, I'll stay on family events to start off with. My mother's in a memory care center. Honestly, I would be very, very cautious about taking her out myself. I don't think you can jump in any time here and say good idea, bad idea, but I just don't. I see, like, going to lunch, I go to the bathroom, I'm coming back, she's gone. That's kind of a scenario. And I have to admit, I'm an engineer, so we're a very pessimistic crowd. We always have to, when we design something, we have to say, now what's going to go wrong? So I think about what's going to go wrong with that situation.
So you really liked my question there of what's the worst thing that could happen?
Yeah, well, the one point that I've been thinking about lately that you brought up is who is it good for? I mean, talking among family, everybody's got an opinion, and when I'm starting to hear, well, they're telling me things they would like to do, but it's not in my mother's personality in the past. So that's a point. That's a very good point that I think you should expand on.
Yeah. So you're talking about your mother has dementia.
Correct.
And she lives in memory care.
Correct.
And the thought wafts through your mind occasionally that maybe I could get mom and we could go do something, or maybe I could go get mom and she could be part of this family activity or this family event.
But that wasn't her personality before. She was a stay-at-home. She never went out. She was how should I state this? Hard-natured Appalachian Mountain type of person. not to categorize, but so
she was never a very social kind of person.
not in the last 25, 30 years, no.
And so if there was a family event, what would her contribution have been? So 25 years ago, if there was a wedding or there was a new baby or there was an event, what would your mother's contribution have been? Would she have gone and here's confession.
Yeah.
When I go to family events, I always make sure I park so I can get out.
Get out. I'm with you. I'm with you. She might go, she might not. If it was, a niece or a nephew, unless it was a couple of nieces, particularly, she would go to those events. Other than that probably not. God, I had another point now for, and actually family events right now, she disparages family just awfully when I'm on my visits. So
okay. So she was reluctant in the past.
Yeah.
And less so, even less interested now. So when I asked about what was her, and you brought up a good point that when anybody's thinking about these family events, to think about what was did this person like those events before they got dementia? Do they like being around people now? So that can be for anybody thinking about any event. And the other piece I was pulling out is, what was the person's role in those events? So for example, there are some people who aren't comfortable going, but they'll prepare food. So let me send, I go and I drop, I'm not going to stay for the whole visitation thing, but I'm going to go and I'm going to drop off food. So that was my role, is I'll swing by and drop off a gift and then I'm out of there. So some people want to, and this is not speaking to your mother, but speaking broader, some people want to help set up the event. Some people want to prepare for the event. Some people want to be there and network with people during the event. The reason to have funerals is so we can see family we haven't seen in a few years or a few decades. And so that's what they like to do. That's the benefit for them of being at the event. Some people like to just one-on-one with people. Some people will go and spend time with the kids because that's what they like to do at the event. So thinking about, were there any of those kinds of roles that your mother found that, maybe not fun, but maybe made her feel meaningful or important?
Yeah, she wouldn't get involved to that point.
Okay. So
she might attend, she might interrelate a little bit, but she was usually pretty much ready to go early.
So in that situation, she kind of went from obligation.
Yeah.
So she kind of, because
she went if it suited her.
Right. So we've got the person she was, and the person she is remains a person who is not really interested in being with family. So that's the situation, that's the other question. So we've talked about, what kind of a person was she? What kind of a person is she? So kind of setting up some questions here. What kind of a person was she, or he? What kind of a person are they now? Then thinking about what were their roles in those kinds of events. And then thinking about, it gets to that question of, so who are we doing this for now? Are we doing it for people who would like to have that generation represented? I'd like to have people at my graduation. I'd like to have people at my wedding. We would like to have that generation included, but it's not really something that would bring meaning and joy and pleasure to her life.
Correct.
Yeah. So I'm all about, I've got to admit, I'm all about the person living with dementia having joy and pleasure in their life. And so if that's not going to be a good fit for her, then you know, my thought is we probably should look for another way
Right.
of meeting that need. So then we start thinking about, are there other ways to represent her presence? So could we do something like have her just take a video of her saying, good luck with your wedding, and then shut it off real quick before whatever comes next.
Yeah. Yeah, that would probably be the best approach, because mom's never been I forgot how you phrased it, but a happy pleasure person anyway. I mean, she's pretty much, if there's a downside to something, she'll find it.
Yeah.
Even before, the dementia onset.
Yeah, and having dementia doesn't usually bring joy and light into people's emotional
No,
perspective.
no.
Sometimes it does. I mean, sometimes, we had a lady we worked with who said, my mother-in-law hated me until she got dementia.
Mhm.
Once she got dementia, I'm now her favorite.
Yeah, no, she was never, there wasn't a hate, but, it wasn't joy and happiness. It was on the other side of the coin, and now it's probably got an exponent beside of it.
You are an engineer, aren't you, Mike?
Yeah, I guess. Can't help. I'm sorry,
Yeah, the rest of us would just say it doubled, but Mike is got an exponent. And
well, I thought I would have said double, but I think it's a little more than that. So
so I knew how to understand that, because my son is in the biomedical engineering joint program at UNC and at State.
there you go.
I hear engineering talk fairly often. So it sounds like we kind of have an idea about big family events for someone who, and I'm gonna broaden this a little bit, Mike, so bear with me, how to manage big family events for people who it's not going to bring them joy to their lives. So let's talk a minute about smaller events. So something like going to get ice cream or going out to lunch, because we can use that same metrics, if you will,
Right.
and for decision making about that smaller activity as well. So when you think about going out for lunch or going out for ice cream or something, was eating out. So we're going to go through the same kind of pattern of, was this something she used to like? Is it something you think she would like now? And then get into some of the logistics. So are we doing it for you, or are we doing it for her? So let's kind of talk about that. So is going out for ice cream or going out for lunch, is that something that was special that she enjoyed 25 years ago or not?
Yeah, she wouldn't mind it if you was doing something for her, like that, it's the logistics of it that I think might be a little challenging.
Yeah. So you're thinking that going out to eat would be something that she would enjoy. And
Possibly, yeah.
Mhm.
I'm not going to be 100% affirmative all that, but there's a better percentage than a bigger gathering there.
well, and maybe I'm not meaning she's jumping up and down with happiness, but something that in the moment would be. So then we start thinking about how do we make this happen? So what is, and we're going to micro process this, and
Yeah.
then we'll macro process this.
Right.
So
Right.
of going out to eat, what are the pieces of going out to eat that she would really get a lot, that would be the most pleasant? Maybe pleasant's a better word than joyful for her.
That she was, the number one thing is that she would be receiving something from somebody else.
Okay. So somebody is giving her, it's somebody is giving her something. So she,
Right.
so that's the most important thing to her.
Right.
So thinking about that, would there be equal value then to bringing her ice cream compared to taking her out for ice cream?
Well, probably.
Okay. So some of it is about not just being given something, but it's being given something in a
Yeah.
situation.
It's more about the substance rather than the experience, really.
So tell me more about that.
Well, as I said, you know, she's a little more interested in the material rather than the, you know, the thought behind it wouldn't probably register with her.
So she would be just as happy with the ice cream if it were brought to her than going out to get it, or
Yeah, I mean, you know, on a weekly basis, I take her, you know, Oreo cookies was her thing, and chocolate, and, you know, the stuff that they're not going to, you know, serve at the during the meals, you know, snacks and stuff like that, something she'll have in the room there. I put a refrigerator in there, so she's, you know, got Pepsis and Ensures and stuff like that. I have no idea what point I was going to derive from this now, but yeah, well, I know, you know, like I said, you know, take her a cheeseburger and French fries, probably just as meaningful as taking her out to cheese and French fries. She may even say that she doesn't want to go because she'll eat in the cafeteria instead of in her room maybe 50% of the time, maybe.
Mhm. So she's got a so for her, it's really more about getting a gift,
Right, so
you
to
know,
speak,
and it
so to
is
speak, yeah.
because so if Lisa and I are friends, and so if it's my birthday, I've got a birthday in September, Lisa, by the way.
I have it on my calendar. I am aware. Yes.
Yeah. So if it's my birthday, it would mean more to me if Lisa took me out for coffee
Right,
than if Lisa just gave me a coffee.
yeah,
But for your mom, she's just as happy if you give her a coffee versus if you take her out for coffee.
right,
So that's meaningful. So we broaden that out again and we start thinking about some of these events like weddings and funeral. I'm going to talk about funerals a little separately, but weddings and graduations. When we start thinking about what is the part of the event that the person is really going to enjoy. So let's think about a wedding. So for the person living with dementia, if we think about somebody who is still recognizing family, still verbal and communicating, still aware of what's going on around them socially and environmentally. For that person, but we know we've only got a few golden moments. You know, our time of highest function is going to be pretty tight. So if you think about that situation, traditionally the important part of a wedding is Lisa, what's the important part of a wedding?
Probably the ceremony.
The ceremony. So for Lisa and for me, you know, if someone invites me to a wedding, the part of the wedding that is important for me to show up and to make my appearance at is the ceremony. So Lisa, if you think about a person living with dementia that I kind of described, thinking about a diamond emerald kind of person, is the ceremony going to be the best part of the wedding for them, or might the reception be the best part of the wedding for them, or might
I think it might be the reception, because it's that social exchange that the person that you're talking about is enjoying, and they're going to get more of that interchange in the social environment than the ceremony.
Yeah. So, you know, being there in time to see the bride and the groom enter into the reception, you know, and all of their glory and finery, and being part of that interaction and the meal and the catching up with people, that might be more meaningful for the person living with dementia than, not so much that it depends on the ceremony, right? Because I grew up Baptist, and the wedding ceremony was, you know, maybe 15, 20 minutes.
right.
I have friends who are Catholic, and the wedding ceremony is like an hour plus.
Yeah.
And other thing that has gotten really complicated about weddings, we're thinking, and I am thinking about, as I think about somebody living with dementia being part of a wedding, the wedding part might be okay. The reception part might be okay. It's the 2.5 hours where they're taking pictures of the wedding party.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Well, Mama is more happy when she has control of the agenda.
Well, and I think that's a really good point, Mike, is if someone can make that choice still and they understand, would you like to go to the ceremony?
Yeah.
Or should we go to the party? And if someone is able to make that choice within their dementia, then I think that
I don't think she's able at this point. She's at the point where there has been times that she didn't recognize me. Brothers that have, a brother had been dead 10 years. She's speaking of him doing something nasty to her, in her opinion. So, it's differentiation is not, a strong point anymore.
Sure. And Mike, you have you said something earlier a little bit about family, and I think we have to do, like Melanie said, we have to do what's right for a person with dementia first, what's
Yeah.
right for them, and then help our family understand. But I'm wondering if you have family members that are suggesting that you take mom to events, even though she doesn't want to go. Is that kind of the situation?
Not particularly take to event. Well, just for during an example, one cousin said, you need to take her outside, set her in the sun so she can get vitamin C. Now that's what my cousin would like to do. She would enjoy that. Mama shuts her blinds when she's in a room. I have to come in and open the blinds up. So, that's what I thought after the conversation. I didn't mention it, but after the conversation, I thought, well, that's something Janet would like to do. I said, but Mama doesn't like to do anything like that. So that's what I'm getting, recommendations based on, and it's human nature. It's based on your personality. Yeah, you guys should go take a course in calculus, as far as I'm concerned.
My son would not recommend that.
Oh, really?
He did not like calculus or DFQ.
I didn't either. I'm talking about misery lover and company situation. But anyway, you see that, but that's, when I'm she's been in the home about 9 months now. So it's, it's a learning curve, of course. And, I've been real concerned about my family's opinion on things, and then I've got to thinking, well, that's really not something that Mama would really want to do. That's something they would want to do.
And so that's another real, thank you for kind of bringing that back up, Lisa, and
Right.
kind of clarifying that, because that's another really good point is who really wants this to happen, and why do they want it to happen? And so I have things phrases I keep in my back pocket, and I keep them in my back pocket so I can just pull them out. I don't have to think about them. I don't have to create them. I don't have to figure out. And so I'll say something like, so I do reflection. So Lisa, you be my sister who says you think Mom would really like to go. I should take Mom outside and sit in the sun with her. So unmute and kind of tell me that.
So Melanie, I don't understand why you don't take Mom outside more. She really needs to get more fresh air and sunshine.
So Lisa, so you're thinking Mom would really enjoy being outside and getting some fresh air and some sunshine. Let me think about that and talk to Mom and see what she's interested in doing.
Okay.
Yeah, and
that's
I'm
reasonable. Right. Yeah.
My stay would be based on what data? I mean, seriously, on what criteria are you basing that statement on?
Because Mom's thought about being outside as working in the garden.
She didn't do that.
Do that either. Okay. So there's that. What were you gonna say?
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, when you say that back to me, it makes me feel like I'm being heard, which I think is important for me, because as a family member who's trying to be helpful, whether I really am helpful or not, I don't know, but I'm giving you my opinion as my way of helping. I think. And
Right.
so when you say, I'll think about that, I'll talk to mom about that, at least I know I've been heard that way.
Yeah. That, which
It
is
may
why
not
I
ever
did.
happen.
Yeah, that's why I didn't make a statement to her that night,
Mhm.
because, and I usually don't, I just let them have their talk, and then, I'll file it away and then think about it. And I said, well, that either makes sense or it doesn't.
So Melanie, I have sort of a question with a different focus on this a little bit from Mike's situation. And that would be, say maybe I was going to get married and I wanted my grandmother who has dementia to be a part of the wedding. And maybe she lives in memory care and she is not as verbal as she used to be, and she kind of seems to know me when I visit, but not a lot of the other family members, that kind of thing. Do you have suggestions for maybe how to approach that situation, or how I could start to think about that? Because I know we're talking about making it a positive experience for that person living with dementia. And, in my mind, I'm thinking if it's my event and I would want that person there because I love them, how can I make it good for them too? What are things to think about there?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And it's very similar to if I'm going to invite somebody to my wedding who's in a wheelchair. Yeah, I'm going to have to make sure that there are accommodations made. So if I invite somebody to my wedding with dementia, yay. I think that's I think it's a fantastic, inclusive kind of thing. And how do we make the accommodations to make it successful for everybody? So some things to think about might be the time of the wedding, or what time are we going to schedule the wedding? Because we might do better to have a morning wedding than to have a nighttime wedding. If the priority really is for grandma to be here, thinking about those things, who's going to be with grandma? So whose focus is going to be not the bride, not the groom, not the wedding, but grandma. So somebody's focus is, so that's probably not going to be the father or mother of the bride, the father or mother of the groom. That might be an aunt, or that might be maybe a paid caregiver. But whose focus is not going to be on the event and the wedding, whose focus is going to be on grandma. So that's another thing to kind of keep in mind. And then to think, like we started talking about a little bit, which parts of the event might there be the most natural kind of overlap, that grandma might have more, might really want to see a video of the wedding ceremony and be at the wedding. Or maybe the wedding is not screamed. Oh, you could scream a wedding. Maybe the wedding is streamed and grandma's watching the wedding in a place that's a little more open, a little, and then goes to the reception after the 2.5 hours of pictures. The other thing that kind of came to my mind was this idea of just knowing that every wedding I've ever been part of, something happened that was unexpected. That, and it's what makes the wedding your wedding. It just happened. And we could have a whole thing on weird wedding things that happen. But the one that happened in extended family was there was a grandfather there with dementia. There was an aunt who was, assigned to kind of be his partner during the ceremony. Long wedding. He was starting to get restless. His person kind of put her arm around him and leaned over and said, it's gonna, we're getting really close. And he said, as loud as can be, you don't waller all over me anywhere else. Why are you wallering all over me in church? And it just kind of made, that's their wedding. So whether it's, a young child jumping over the train, or whether it's, a groomsman passing the bride, going to get the mother, something's going to happen. That makes it unique and different. So if you go in with the expectation of this is going to go perfect and exactly as we planned, you probably need some therapy, and you probably don't need to have somebody with dementia there.
I do
Right.
anyway, but go ahead.
Right. Yeah.
So that
That's a
idea-
very good point. Something always is going to happen, whether you have someone who is in a wheelchair or who maybe is hard of hearing or who has dementia. So you need to be prepared, kids, those kinds of things. And then you also have to make accommodations for whoever your guests are, no matter who they are. So it's a good point. Yeah.
that's
So
part of being a good host.
can I jump in here for a second?
Please.
And this is pre-event. What characteristics or whatever should you look for in the person with dementia to evaluate if they are going to, disrupt or whatever, if they're really a candidate to go to the event like this?
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of dress rehearsals. And so what that means is before I took somebody to a wedding, I might take them to a church service. And see how do they do in the church service. Before I took someone to a wedding where there are going to be food trucks, I might try taking that person to a food truck beforehand, just to kind of, if we're thinking about taking somebody out to dinner, I might try, let's just go drive around first, let's just go drive around, go through, get, curbside service and eat somewhere in the shade. So I'm a big proponent of let's practice. Let's see how going out in the car goes. Let's see how sitting in a room with other people goes. Let's see how doing something this time of day goes. Let's see how. So I'm a big proponent of taking things apart, looking at the pieces, and then practicing each of those pieces, and then seeing if we've got the endurance to make it happen. That's a great question.
I see why your son's an engineer now.
Yeah, he's related to me in some ways.
Yeah.
So the other thing I wanted that kind of came to my mind from Mike's thing, and also from what Lisa said, was this idea of, yes, preparing the agenda, preparing the environment, preparing the person living with dementia. When do we tell them? I have someone I'm working with who, if she knows there's something happening, calls the daughter constantly until the thing happens. So like if we're going to lunch on Mother's Day, the 4 days leading up to Mother's Day are multiple calls, not going to meals because something's happening and I need to be here. So if that person, I might just show up the day of Mother's Day, pick them up and take them to the event, because that anticipation is too much for that person. So thinking about how do we prepare the person? Do they need that lead in time of buying a dress and doing, or do they need it just to happen?
Right.
And then thinking about the other people involved. So who else at the graduation or the graduation party, or who else at the 50th anniversary party needs to kind of be prepared that you haven't seen this person in 3 years and things are different. So they come in prepared that, mom has changed or my husband has changed. And these are some of the things that are now his baseline. So he might not know you. He might ask you the same questions or tell you the same story over and over again. He might pick his nose while we're there. He might, so these are some of the things that might happen, just so you know that things are different. So that kind of preparing family, preparing children, ahead of time to know what they can expect. And also to have a strategy, because if it's a large event, you're not gonna, if it's a graduation, you're not going to prepare everybody attending the graduation that this person's got dementia. How do you have a strategy for managing that in the moment? So Lisa, do y'all still have those My Companion Has Dementia cards?
We do. We
Can
do
you
have
talk about those
those.
just a minute?
Sure. So we have, the ones that we have are about business card size. And they just basically say, you know, my companion has dementia. They may, I think it says they may say or do things that are different, you know, please bear with us, something
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
We also actually have one for people living with dementia if they want to share as well. So, you know, if you're going to a restaurant, for example, with graduation, you're going out for a meal or something, and you may want to just give that to the server or
Right.
the hostess so that they know that you need a patient server while you're eating or something like that. So we
That's
do
a
have
great
those, and
idea.
we have a lot of family members that like to have those just in case.
Yes.
Yeah, especially if someone has not been prepared, like you said, Melanie, and then an incident happens. Instead of trying to explain and making the person with dementia feel angry or bad or whatever, we can just give one of those cards. Usually people are okay with that. You know, they see that and they go, oh, okay.
So yeah, and I really believe in those, because we can't prepare everybody, and sometimes people think they're prepared and it really turns out that they're not. So I wanted to take a couple of minutes. I said I would talk differently about funerals.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the reason for talking differently about funerals. So many reasons for talking differently about funerals. You know, you know, you don't plan a funeral. Most people don't plan the specifics of a funeral, you know, years in advance or months in advance. They may, you know, have a celebration of life. If someone is cremated, that may be planned and organized, and I would kind of manage that similarly to a wedding and another event. But but maybe some of these pieces add in that they're often unexpected, and there's this idea of this is something this person would have done in the past. So if this family member died and pre-dementia, this person would have gone to the funeral, been part of bereavement, been part of grieving. And, you know, this is a cousin I haven't met. You know, this is somebody that hasn't been part of the person's life. They don't ask about them. So that loss for that person living with dementia really isn't a loss, because it's not really an active part of their life. So in that situation, um, you know, that's one of the things we talk about with funerals is, you know, is this if this ritual something that's going to be important and meaningful for the person living with dementia, or are we doing it because of community expectations or family expectations? And really separating those two questions. That, you know, if I have dementia and my spouse dies, chances are I'm going to be asking about him. I'm going to notice that he's gone. You know, then that may be something that participating in might be meaningful and important and valuable for me, not as I'm going to remember it and I'm going to be able to talk about it later on, or you're going to pull out the photographs and see, here's you at the funeral, you know, not to be used in that way, but just as in that moment as a way of grieving with my community. So that may be something that works. It may be something if this is my son who lives in another state, and I haven't heard from him in a year. He doesn't come to visit. He has a good life there. There's no tension, there's no bad feeling, but he has a life there. I have a life here. We're not really, maybe a sibling might be a better example than a child. But we've lost touch. You know, it's not then the efforts to participate in that event might not be really meaningful for me in this situation. So Lisa, you unmuted. Was there something you wanted to add?
No, not really. I was coughing, so I muted myself. But I guess I do have a question of if it is someone who maybe I don't see every day, but I've had a close relationship with previously in my life, like pre-dementia, that kind of thing, maybe a sibling. And I know families wrestle a lot with, well, they were so close before, and we don't know how much she remembers now. But she talks about that person sometimes, even though they don't see each other very often. I know that's really emotional for families and really hard decisions. So you say, like, we need to look at what's best for the person versus a family expectation. But can you talk about that a little bit more? Because that's really difficult for sometimes. And I'm sure within the family, there's going to be people that think one way or think another way.
Yeah. So that's a great question. And you know, I really would pull in all of those pieces of the previous relationship, you know, the current relationship, how much support there's going to be there for the person living with dementia. And would it really be meaningful to that person? So thinking about something that maybe a young grandchild, you know, that it's unexpected, it's traumatic for everybody involved. You know, is there going to be space for taking care of grandma with dementia and a community of really deeply grieving people? Or do we have something? Do we have something that's more intimate, that's separate for that person living with dementia? Or
I think, I'm sorry. I was gonna say, I think people, you know, wedding, funeral, think traditionally that, you know, well, everybody should be here.
Mhm. Yeah,
As opposed to, well, we got somebody in a wheelchair, we got somebody, you know, that can't see, we got somebody with dementia. So I think the first knee-jerk reaction is, well, yeah, everybody should be here.
Mm-hmm.
and so if our idea is, yeah, everybody should be here, you know, we want we want grandma here, or we want mom here. We think it's really going to be meaningful for her to be here because she talks about the times that they had. This is somebody who is a strong part of her life, important part of her life. We would like her, we think it'd be good for her to have the opportunity to grieve in community, because there's something really powerful about grieving in community. You know, there's something really powerful about being with people and sharing those memories and sharing those stories with people who really get it. That's really important. So yeah, we want grandma to be there. She's an important part of it, or mom or husband, whoever. Now, how do we make it work?
Right.
So I'm really a believer that our events need to represent our community and our families. So how do we adapt and accommodate? I think maybe accommodate is the word. How do we include? Maybe include is a better word. You know, how do we modify the event or modify the environment or modify the situation so we include people living with dementia, people with physical disabilities, people who maybe have you know, how do we make our events represent our families and our communities? So how do we accommodate, adapt, include?
Right.
So I do think that's really important.
Yeah. I have another, you know, how much weight do you put on the fact that you've already got empirical data showing you that the day after the event, the dementia patient is not going to remember a thing about it?
Yeah.
How much weight do you put to that?
Yeah, not a lot for me.
Right. I wouldn't think so either, as long as it's got to do about what's going on at the time.
Yeah. So if it's my birthday and Lisa brings me a beautiful coffee and we have wonderful time together, that's really a moment that I'm going to cherish, that I'm going to enjoy. It doesn't really matter if I know it's my 80th birthday or my 50th birthday, you know, it doesn't really matter if I remember it tomorrow, if I don't. It's if we have a good moment there. So if I go to the wedding and, you know, we have a wonderful time and I'm enjoying it, everybody's beautiful, it's great. And tomorrow I'm saying, so when is that wedding coming up?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, you're really excited about the wedding. And then, you know, so what I would do in that moment. So Lisa asked, you're my mom. You asked me, we just had the big wedding, you know, we are still exhausted. And you call me, the wedding was Saturday afternoon. You call me Sunday morning asking me when the wedding was.
So, Melanie, I know that wedding's coming up and I'm looking forward to going. When is the wedding again?
Oh, you're excited about Matthew's wedding.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, Matthew's getting married.
we're all excited about weddings are such a beautiful time.
Yes.
And you know, his girlfriend, she is going to be so beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Now, when is that again? When
And
is
he
that?
can look so handsome in
Oh, he's
he
handsome.
is. Do you think that green tie is going to be better? Or do you think that brown tie with his hazel eyes? Which do you think would be
I
better?
think the green might bring out a little bit of those flecks in his eyes.
The green
Yeah.
might bring out a little bit of the
Yeah.
flex in his eyes. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna let him know that because your opinion means a lot to us.
Oh, well, that's sweet. Now, when is that again?
It's, you know, we're not going to miss it. We're not going to miss
Okay.
it because you are, it would not be the same, Mom, without you there.
Oh, well, I
Gonna
don't want to miss it.
You don't want to miss it. I promise you with my heart and my soul,
Okay.
you are not going to miss Matthew's wedding.
Okay. You're a good mama. You are. You're...
You know, he's a good son. I try hard. So what did you notice I did there, Lisa? What did I do there?
You reassured me I was going to be a part of things.
Mhm.
You asked my opinion, so I felt involved in something. You didn't stop and argue with me or say, no, we had that yesterday, Mom. Don't you remember?
Because would there be any benefit ever at all?
They would just upset me.
Yeah. Would it help you remember?
No.
So I might at some point have a picture of you and Matthew and the bride and all of the wedding regalia and put it in your house. And I might say something about, oh, what a beautiful moment this was.
And I might remember, or I might not.
That situation scenario was extremely beneficial because, you know, my nature is to present the facts.
Mhm, mhm.
You, Melanie, know that. And so sometimes I don't, well, that's one thing that was part of the question was when she mentioned something about her brother who's been dead 10 years, you know, my first knee-jerk reaction, well, he's been dead 10 years.
Mhm.
Yeah, I have a number of engineers in my life, Mike, and
Yeah.
engineers in my work. And I love working with engineers because once you get it, you get it. And
Yeah.
part of the challenge for, and it's not just engineers, it's a lot of logical people. It's people who managed a home in this kind of way. And it's, if I do this, then this is the result. So it's a lot, teachers and librarians and lawyers and house, you know, homemakers, a lot of people have that idea that if I do this, then this is going to happen. So taking that deep breath and letting go of being right and just find a way to go with the flow, not to create the flow,
Yeah.
but just to find a way of kind of going with the flow. And so having those things in my back pocket where I can reflect back the emotions. You're really excited about the wedding. You really don't want to miss
Right.
it. I'm so excited. His girlfriend is so beautiful. It's going to be so much fun.
Right.
And then kind of
I just read in a book, it said the line was, I'm practicing being kind rather than being right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that actually is on a bookmark that I used to give out that said it is better to be kind than
Yeah.
it is to be right. So there, you know, it's that idea of letting go of the facts and the figures. I know that sounds like profanity to you, but
Boy, you have no idea.
But I guess it's important to, it doesn't matter which way you answer. The fact is the fact to you, but it's different for her. So instead of getting in that argument, which you know is going to happen, if
She
you
does,
say what
she
you want
doesn't
to
argue.
say.
She just kind of takes it and makes no comment and just goes on, you know, to the next subject. So,
But I imagine if you could get her to talk about her brother or reminisce about stories from childhood, maybe.
not this one.
Not that one, not that brother. Okay.
So
Yeah,
it's kind of good that that one's gone.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 So I'm kind of glancing back at some of the other questions that were asked to make sure. So Lisa, there are a number of questions about travel. Are there some resources
Oh,
through Dementia Alliance about travel?
there are. That is a great question. We actually have a video from you about travel that's really good. We have on our YouTube channel, we have a great video by Melanie talking about travel and planning for travel and what you should do while you travel. And then we have a thing called the Care Partners Forum, where our dementia navigators or social workers get together and talk about different issues. And they got together and talked about things like having a go bag and activities you can do while you travel for your person and that kind of thing. So we've got some great materials online for that as well. And of course, people can always call with their questions and talk to our navigators as well. But we do have 2 videos at least on there, and we've got some handouts too, if anybody's interested in that. Yeah, great questions. That's the important things to be prepared for. Yeah, traveling can be fun if you approach it right. Yeah.
And so I was looking back at some of the other questions that were sent in ahead of time, and some of them were about things like the explaining to the person living with dementia, whether it's explaining to the person living with dementia about the event or explaining to the person living with dementia about their changes and their losses, or explaining to the person living with dementia about why their behaving isn't okay. And so there are other resources that we have that talk a bit about this prefrontal cortex, which is where logic and reason is. And that people living with dementia, you know, so Mike's really empowered here.
Right here.
Lisa is as well. But that for people living with dementia, often there are a lot of changes in this part of their brain, which mean that their ability to look at themselves and their behavior and be accurate in how they understand what's going on really doesn't work so much. So their ability, they look and they think, well, I'm fine. And everybody else around them is going, not so fine. It's not, when we try to explain, we wind up doing this and kind of butting heads. So that idea of if you think about, you know, you've got the person living with dementia, you've got things going on in the environment, you've got things going on with people around them. We're going to do better at manipulating those 2 circles than we are at trying to manipulate them. And manipulate me not being manipulative, but being alter or change or vary.
And Melanie, you said explain. I think explaining to the person with dementia doesn't often work because they're not processing that the same way anymore. And so being prepared and changing what we can in the environment, like you just said, and being ready for things as much as we can, and then going with the flow in our reactions to things instead of just explaining the details, because that doesn't work.
So I might other side of this is when I do explain, you know, I'm gonna give the person the information they can hold on to. So I'm gonna say, Mom, guess what?
What?
It's Mother's Day.
Mother's Day?
Yay!
Yay!
I'm thinking I would love to take you to lunch. And you look beautiful the way you are. It's not a fancy place, but I got a surprise. So let's go.
A surprise.
Yeah.
Oh, I like surprises. Okay,
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
go.
So let's go. So now I kind of set it up. So now we're not changing clothes. We're not dealing with who, when, where, how. You know, the surprise is the whole family's going to be there, and we've been planning it for a week. So that worked for Lisa for that mom. You know, for another mom, I might do, Mom, hey.
Hey.
So Mom, it's a pretty day outside.
Yeah, I guess so.
I would love to go for a ride and just look at the flowers.
Okay, I think we could do that. A
Okay.
ride would be nice.
So now I get Mom out of the community. I get her into my car. We go for a ride. We look for flowers. Mom, I'm hungry. While we're out, I'm gonna stop in here and get something to eat.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm not offering her a choice because this is where everybody is. And so then we slide in and then we hop. But if I had told that mom there was a surprise, what would have happened?
I'm not going.
Yeah.
I
So-
don't like surprises. No.
So it's still thinking about what really works for this person. You know, for another person, it might be, Mom, you know me, I'm so sorry, I'm running late. And I've always been late. So me being late doesn't surprise Mom. So
Mhm.
she's going to huff and puff and say, well, I wish you would not do this all the time. I am so sorry. When the reality is I'm not late, but if I don't say I'm late, we're going to get bogged down.
Mhm.
So those were kind of some things to think about with some of the other questions that people ask. I'm kind of looking at some of those, some things about travel, so I think
Yeah, that's great. Mike, we're almost out of time, but do you have any other questions for Melanie today? Anything else that's on your mind you want to share or talk about?
If you got another hour. I think maybe.
I do, but probably not right now.
Right. Is there a way I can ask questions to you guys in between these webinars? Is there a web email address or something that I could send questions to?
We would love for you to send us questions. You can call
That
our
was the wrong thing to
office.
say, but go ahead.
No, you can call our office at 919-832-3732.
Yeah.
And you can email us at info@dementianc.org, and I can type that in the chat for you. Or you can just, and our dementia navigators are always available. And if you have questions for Melanie directly, you are welcome to send those to us and we will share them with her. We have lots of people here that's what they do. They help answer questions and brainstorm things, and we always reach out to Melanie when we need her as well. So
where were you guys 6 months ago? Well, you were in the same place. Where was I? That's the question.
So the other thing I would mention is dementia changes. And so you may have figured out things for now, but there may be things coming up that might be. And so all of those resources and support groups.
Yes.
Because support groups are great resources for not just support from people who understand what you're going through or who get it, but also for information, knowledge, and also for resources.
Right.
So I've got to put my plug in there.
Yeah, definitely. And we have a list of resources on our website for counties all across the state of North Carolina. So support group information there, or you can just call us and we'll help you find one. Thank you guys so much for this wonderful conversation. It was so interesting today.
Yes, it was. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, for joining us. And Melanie, you too. And I hope you both have a great day. And I know Jean's listening as well. So thank you, everybody. And we really appreciate your time and have fun at your family events.